Well, welcome back to another episode of WTF Walk the Floors. I'm Stephanie Ledger with First Rate Hospitality, and I'm joined with my co host, Michelle Kline of Kline Hospitality. How are you doing today, Michelle?
Doing wonderful, Stephanie. How are you?
Great. So I'm so excited. We're still continuing on our little series of talking about inspection secrets, and that we've been doing so many episodes of diving into different areas. And today we're going to dive in deep of talking about back of the house. So we already talked about the front of the house. So now we're going to talk about the back of the house, or how we like to say the heart of the house.
The heart of the house. It's where all those people that are behind the scenes and make it happen.
Yeah.
Yes. So, on that same note of those who are spending all this time delivering on that promise that we have chosen to commit to with our guests are all our team members. And our team members should enjoy the same level of service and the same level of innovation and the same level of beautifulness when it comes to those back of the house areas. There is someone here in Vegas that does this well, and that is the Win and the Anchor in Las Vegas. Their back of
Oh,
the
yeah.
house hallways are just simply beautiful. So, not only from the food that they serve to their team members, but also the way the hallways look, the way that it's really a different experience. And this is so important because we tend to forget, or maybe not forget, but when it's time to cut some areas because maybe we're shorthanded, the first area that suffers is always the back of the house, because we want to make sure that we're catering to our guests. Now, it's important that we don't forget that those areas still have to look pretty and decent, and it has to be an inviting environment for those team members to go use the restroom or
Mm.
take a break, or have lunch. So making sure that those back of the house areas are at the same level, and having the same expectation for the quality that we produce in those areas is extremely important. What do you think, Stephanie?
No, I agree as well. And I think also too of, you want to having consistency between your front of the house and back of the house, especially when it comes to those inspections. We tend to focus so much on front of the house because that's the guests, what they're seeing, who they're interacting. But there is so much that happens also too behind the scenes that is really that first step to setting up front of the house for success. And you want to making sure, for my inspection tidbit is, even reviewing with the back of the house of it, letting them know those standards. So maybe it comes to, plating of the food for the restaurant, or even for a banquet, but making sure that they understand what that server is having to do when it comes to describing of the food, or the plate presentation, not, the juices aren't running off to the side, but really making sure too that the back of the house fully understands what the front of the house, what their expectations are having to do, so we can start right from the beginning of setting the team up for success.
Absolutely. And what a better place to get that started, but in what they're experiencing when they step foot on property. So there's a
Yes.
lot of, especially the smaller properties, where the team member will enter the property through the loading dock area, right? Maybe
Yes.
the property is small enough where you don't have a designated area for like a team member entrance. So as you walk through the loading dock, what are you smelling?
Yeah.
Are you sleeping on grease, right? What do you see? So ensuring that those areas look, I don't know if I would use the word appealing, because it's probably not going to be appealing, but where it looks inviting, where you're not feeling like you're walking into the garbage area, right? Or
Yes.
loading and unloading type of situation. And then as you make your way through, the rest of the areas before you actually hit the floor is creating that experience as well. So if I go and use the restroom and the restroom looks like the restroom of a gas station in the middle of Route 66 that no one really, drives anymore, then what do you think the experience is going to be, or the mindset or the mood for that team member as they walk into or they step into the front of a house world? It is going to affect their experience for sure. So some of the areas that we tend to forget, example, the freight elevators.
Yeah.
Freight elevators are classic for having, remaining pieces of pallets in there, or someone forgot a dirty cart because they're not using it anymore, or they just didn't feel like returning it, right? So making sure that the areas are free of debris, that where you're, walking through, you're not only saving yourself from a potential lawsuit that comes from something that was in the wrong place and created a team member's injury, but also making sure that we take care of creating that experience for the team member.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I love how you're talking about, the back of the house with that engagement and, as they're entering into work, because I feel like you also, too, will see that through the employees' interactions, that they're proud to be working at this property. And they also, too, have the passion for, maintaining the cleanliness as well for the property. And when you're talking about the freight elevator, it always reminds me of those times when we would have high profile guests where they had to utilize the freight elevator to move around the property because for their own safety, it couldn't be out in the public area, or also to, maybe they were doing something they didn't want anyone to knowing that they were at the property. And then here you having a high profile person going into the freight and they're, just not feeling the cleanliness there, or even that, there's boxes or pallets or there. And now, where they also too going to think when they're coming into their guest room, maybe this is how they're entering into the property and this is their first inspection of seeing what to expect, the rest of their stay.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite areas is the team member dining room. That's the one
Yes.
place where they go, they get to relax, they get to take their break, they get to connect with other departments, they get to, talk about the novela, whatever that looks like, right? So it has to be an environment that is not only fun, but also it looks nice and it feels
Yeah.
nice. And there are so many brands that do such a great job when it comes to their team member cafeteria. And it's, sometimes maybe you don't have a robust menu. Maybe you don't provide a menu at all. But the sole fact that you have that one area dedicated for team members to go and relax has to be
Mm-hmm.
done the same way that you are delivering that service at the front of the house for your guests, right? At the end of the day, you cannot get the job done unless you have those team members. So it's a very great way to push that experience forward, and then also create those memorable experiences for the team members to connect with each other and so on. So for example, areas that we don't look at, like if you do have a line, a hotline where, like a buffet line, your team members are getting food, what does that look like? What kind of food are you bringing in? If it's things
Yes.
that were an overflow from your buffet or an overflow from other restaurants, is the presentation still up to par? Is this something that you would serve your guest? If it is, go ahead and take it to the team member dining room, right? And then the other thing is the furniture in the room, or the floor, not only looking at the floor being clean, but also making sure that it's shiny, and can you throw a coat of wax on it so that it looks like you're really taking care of your team member the same way you're taking care of your guests.
Yes, absolutely. I want to add on to, the employee uniform area as well. This is so many uniforms are coming and going. Whether you have a attendant there that is handing you the uniform, they're also too inspecting the uniform before putting it up, or someone that you can communicate saying, "Hey, my I lost the button," or I spilt red wine. This It's a hard stain that's going to get out. But having also too of making sure with your employee uniforms and talking whose job is it to making sure that they're inspecting those uniforms as well, because as a hotel operator, I don't want to be paying for a shirt to be laundered when it already has a rip in it, and it's not of no use anymore. But now, because they had no one to be able to communicate of this rip that is in their on their uniform, and now we're spending extra dollars for it to go out into the launder, comes back, keeps going back and forth. And then you have the inspector that's looking at the employees' uniforms and then seeing, oh, their uniform, isn't prestige, pristine condition. Because of that rip, but that may be also too the only uniform that the employee had. So employee uniforms, making sure back of the house a big focus on too.
Absolutely. And at that point, it's usually too late by the time the team member
Yes.
realizes that there's a stain or a rip. Yeah. And then on that same note, the properties that have an automated system where you drop off and pick up, where there's no one really going through what is being dropped off, it's so critical to have a tight relationship, and a relationship where you can on on certain occasions inspect the work that they're doing with whoever
Yeah.
it is, your uniform provider, or that company that will process the uniform, repair it if necessary, making sure that you can lean on that organization to know that by the time that that uniform comes back, it's up to par, as opposed to that team member picking it up and realizing this is not something that I can go to my work area with.
Yes. No, I love it. And also too, how you were talking about with your vendors, of making sure you do have those great relationships with your vendors and having that open communication, because there's so many things that, maybe you ran out of toilet paper for housekeeping, and now the guest experience for that inspector, is maybe they're delayed from their check-in because that room doesn't have the toilet paper. But now, with having that conversation even with your vendors or your neighborhood hotels, to making sure, having, how can we be able to, you know work on a scenario so it's not impacting the guest experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So to follow up with that, the impact of the guest experience, but linking it back to back of a house inspections and how our team members can be in alignment with that experience, is the closets. Whether it
Yes.
is a janitor closet that is located in a public space, or it is a locker room, or a supply room on the floors, whatever the case may be, you have these closets. So, in many occasions, our team member might be doing something in the closet and leave the door wide open. Or the classic WTF moment that we've all experienced in the industry, which is when the team member doesn't have a key. So now they're sharing, or they're sharing that specific supply room, so they jam all these toilet paper in the lock so that the door won't close. So it kind of closes, but if you really don't make an effort, it'll eventually be wide open, right? So making sure that whoever walks by that area, by that door, the door remains closed. And if for whatever reason that door has to be open for a specific period of time, making sure that that closet is organized, labeling, understanding what goes on each shelf, keeping it consistent across the different towers, for example, if it's different supply rooms for housekeeping. But whatever that the case may be, making sure that it it is not only organized, but it's also clean, and it's free of debris and free of any potential equipment that is dead and no one uses, so they just shoved it in there, right? So keeping up with that, because at the end of the day, you are not, as a leader, you're not in control of that door being closed at all times, because you can't be everywhere at all times. So
Yeah.
training the team of the why we leave that door closed, and then if it has to be open, the importance behind making sure that it looks organized and clean. Because if that is not the case and your guest walks by it, the entire experience is now ruined, because now they're going to start looking for more.
Yes, I'm laughing because when we used to work together and visiting properties, that was my favorite inspection, with walking the floors, and then also to walking those closets and being like, WTF, what is going on here? But I do agree, organization in your closets. This is also to helps you, to prevent you from running out of toilet paper. And my tidbit for this is making sure with the labeling, putting the par level as well. This is an easy way for a reference, because no matter who, you have your houseman, you have your floor supervisor, you even have your room attendant, if they're helping you out of doing inventory, or also too it being like, hey, we're getting low on a certain item, they actually know, okay, what is the PAL level that needs to be in there to making sure that we're able to have a successful day.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
love those closets.
Love the closets. Gotta love the closets.
Oh, and as the inspector, when I'm the guest, I always love just, oh, can I get in here? Let me just see if the door is open, and, what am I going to find?
And many of the guests that will, for fun or depending on the type of guest that you have at each hotel, will actually help themselves to whatever is in there,
Oh, yes. Yes.
for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Final tips? What do you think?
No, this is great. I think, the one of the main things is making sure we're having that communication with our back of the house, making sure that they're included in understanding, why certain steps are, and what and how we need them of the back of the house to enhance the guest experience, when they may think that, oh no, that's front of the house, that I don't need to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Synergy and alignment. I love it. Wonderful. So, inspection secrets for back of the house experiences. This is the last episode when it comes to front and back of the house. This is our closing, but we have a lot more tips coming up in the next few episodes. So, stay tuned. Great having you on the other side.
Thank you.